So vols stair-stepping higher in terms of realized. We did reach some pretty elevated levels into this move to new highs into the inauguration. So Bitcoin realized hit 80, Ethereum about 95. Those are the orange lines that have been climbing up. But you see the implieds were rallying into the inauguration, but they've got whacked pretty hard since then. Front end has come down by a good sort of 10 to 15 vols and continues to be slipping, it seems. So that's very normal. That's the kind of vol reset you get when you've got an anticipated event that should create realized vol and it goes away. Now, because of that drop in implies, we have got negative carry showing on both these assets. Nothing to be alarmed about, though. That negative carry is unlikely to be persistent. That often happens when implied vol leads realized vol lower after an event. It's exactly what's happening here. So I would suspect realized vol will follow once we've kind of established that, yes, we've stabilized, and the look back window that is rolling forward in time kind of removes some of these big swings that we had into the inauguration. Okay. The OHLC charts that we have, you can see we did get some breaches of the implied ranges on Bitcoin last week, but Ethereum was really the one that was going a bit nuts. You can see the size of these candles kind of shows that the candles were almost the entire range, both up and down, that was implied. But we ended up net going nowhere, basically. So ended up testing both upside and downsides of the range, but kind of going nowhere, but very volatile within the range, basically. Okay, so really consistently testing those thresholds. In terms of the term structure, we are still a little bit inverted as that front end gamma has performed, but it is heading back down pretty fast, as I said. Looking here, front end still up like, a couple of points to 31st of Jan. This week still up though on the week. And then beyond kind of February onwards is down half a vol to a vol on both assets. You can see the time series here, how the vol kind of evolved throughout the week. We saw this kind of big ramp up in the front end into the inauguration, and it's kind of given it all back there on both assets, as you can see. And then skew wise, whilst we were in put skew last week in the front in Bitcoin, we did flip to about 6 vol call skew flat across the curve during the inauguration. And now we're starting to steepen back out, and we've got the front end coming into only 2 vols and the back end sitting at about 4 vols. Ethereum skews a bit steeper. See that here. In fact, we'll probably show it better here. We see the term structures of skew. So you've got Bitcoin skew kind of at 2 vols in the front, jumps to about 4 vols for next week because they think there'll be some announcement probably made from the Trump administration on crypto by then. So there's still some optimism in the near term around that. And then the call skew kind of grinds its way up towards 6. Ethereum's a bit more gradual. It starts with next to nothing in the front end. There's no real call skew. And then it kind of works its way up towards about 6.5 in the back end there, basically. Okay. So that's kind of how the 2 skew term structures look and how they evolve. In general, this high medium term skew suggests a bullish regime for crypto. Because it's really only front end skew that ever flips into puts, but the 3 month and out is just sitting in call premium. It's basically saying option players think we're in a bullish regime. You're going to need quite a lot to shake us out of that. And until you do, we are keeping the skew in call premium. On a relative value basis, ETH Bitcoin spot, as we said, has been trending lower still. Made another new local low at 0.03 last week, but has bounced off it. But it's looking horrible, that chart. Still very much downtrending. ETH vol did slip a little bit. Obviously, expectation for a move was more in Bitcoin than it was in ETH for the inauguration. So relative value-wise, ETH front end, which was 14 vols over last week, was only about 10 vols over this week. In fact, the whole curve is kind of trading at around 10 vols over. That is probably about fair value for ETH vol. We look at kind of how realized has been playing out on ETH versus Bitcoin. It's consistently about 10 vols over. But obviously, for special situations like the inauguration, Bitcoin obviously can out realize a bit for a small period. Those who had the risk appetite to sell Ethereum vol when it was up at 15 or 20 vols over clearly have been rewarded for doing that because ETH vol has come down on a relative basis. But like I said, at these levels, it's probably looking a bit more fair value. One thing I would say, if you are a gamma seller of Ethereum, delta hedging it on a daily basis has not been your friend. In fact, that's basically been chopping you up, and you probably lost all the theta that you're earning anyway by the delta hedging that you've done, right? So if you're going to sell vol on things like ETH, that you believe are expensive and are kind of going to stay within a range, but they might chop within the range, you're probably better served by doing like strangles that are fairly wide or iron condors that are protected, and basically saying to yourself, I'm not going to delta hedge this until my delta gets above a certain threshold, which gives you quite a lot of breathing room. Or you can basically wait until your short strikes are breached on your iron condors or whatever, and then you mess around with it, right? That's kind of how I'm running the crypto income vault. I'm basically saying I'm going to do my weekly iron condors. I'm not going to do any delta hedging, and then I'm only going to mess with it if my strikes get tested or breached. Then I will look to potentially roll my structure into the following week, maybe in a bit bigger size, utilizing some more margin to try and get some premium back and kind of manage it that way, basically, right? So that's kind of how I'm doing it. And if the market does end up going for a period of just mean reverting for a while, then that strategy should work pretty nicely, basically. So that's kind of the idea there.
Hi everyone, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Remember, this is just a little taster of what we do at Options Insight. To get access to all our research, including my in-depth vol market insights, flows and positioning report, and my portfolio trades, and a whole lot more, you can sign up at options-insight.com. I'll see you soon.